Hello everyone, Panda here with a quick disclaimer. Green Team received an arc of When the Moon Hits Your Eye by John Scalzi, courtesy of NetGalley and Tor. We thank them for the early copy for review. All opinions are our own. Hope you enjoy this slightly chaotic episode.
Hello, and welcome to the Green Team of the Legendarium with the person who volunteered to edit this episode, our furry little friend, BefuddledPanda.
Hi!
And we have our frequent contributor, especially to our Scalzi episodes, our woolly friend, Lammy Lambs.
Hello, hello, hello.
And we have our feathery friend, Cesky, which means
yes, hello.
Chicken.
There's nobody's gonna understand that reference except the four of us.
No!
It's a very specific reference to my username, yes.
Well, and your username means a Czech chicken.
Yeah. I was here for that, and I will forget it in an hour. So, when I go back and listen to this, nothing.
Oh
It's new
God.
information every time you listen. It's the perfect podcast.
Today we are discussing an arc, a John Scalzi arc. This is our third arc from him, and it is called The Moon Hits Your Eye. Just The Moon Hits Your Eye.
When the moon hits your eye.
When the
Like
moon
a
hits your
big
eye.
pizza pie? Pizza
That's
pie?
pie.
amore.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't believe you didn't know this was like a line from a song.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm just old.
Yeah.
Probably. So, we're going to start with the structure of the book, and we're going to start with Lammy, because Lammy has opinions.
Wait.
Wait, we should do general feelings first. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, fine. General feelings.
Non-spoiler.
I loved it, and I've read it twice, and I loved it the second time much more than I loved it the first time.
Oh yeah, you read it
Really?
twice?
Well,
That's intense.
NetGalley read it to me, which is very weird because it's like AI generated, and so like they don't understand. It doesn't understand periods or tone of voice, and so sometimes you have to like open NetGalley. Like, what did they just say?
Oh,
So
interesting.
anyway.
I am a little more mid on this one. I didn't love it like I've loved other Scalzi books, but I didn't hate it. So I'd give it like a firm 3.75 to 4. There are parts I really liked, and then there are other parts where I'm like, I don't really care.
Oh, I didn't give it a number. I would say 4.5.
Nice. Okay, I'll go next. I really liked it. This is my fourth Scalzi book that I've read, and it's my favorite of the 4 that I've read so far.
Well, tell people what the 4 books are so they've got some scope here.
Well, Fuzzy Nation, Red Shirts, and the Kaiju Preservation Society, and When the Moon Hits Your Eye is my 4th. I like this one better than Kaiju, which I know, Lammy, I'm sorry, but it is true.
Okay, so
Wow.
Panda finished the book before me, and I heard her whole spiel on, this is the best Scalzi book I've read, and I liked it more than Kaiju, and I'm like, I'd like to like this more than Kaiju as well, because I loved Kaiju. My average Scalzi rating is 4.5. He never dips below 4 for me. Dude is phenomenal. He hits exactly where I like to read, and this book missed. This is 2.5, maybe a 3.
Oh,
Okay.
man. That's tough.
Oh,
That's tough.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I want you to love this book, not because I love it, but because I want you to not read things that are amiss for you. Does that make sense?
Okay, but on my own podcast, when we read bad stuff, it's way more entertaining.
I have questions about that, but not for the podcast. So what do we think about the structure? And this is where we're going to go to Lammy.
Wait, did you give the premise of this book?
Yeah, let's
the
get
moon the moon turns to cheese, and then stuff happens, and then
Well, that's a spoiler. Cut that out.
That's a
Cut
spoiler.
that out. You
Spoiler.
spoiler.
The moon.
Oh my goodness, this
turns to
episode is going to be
cheese.
a pain to edit.
I'm sorry, Panda.
I'm the worst with spoilers.
You started by having Red read stuff, and that's reading out loud is her kryptonite. We know
I
this.
didn't have her read anything. She ended up not reading anything.
She ad-libbed it. Yeah.
Yeah, so the moon turns to cheese, and all of the rock samples turn to cheese, and stuff happens.
And people are baffled.
Freaking out.
Befuddled, if you will.
Befuddled, that's true.
And they're trying to
That
figure out what's
was
going
adorable.
on and how to live their lives now that the moon has turned to cheese.
Turn to organic compound.
I'm sorry, organic.
Very similar to cheese in appearance.
Organic matrix is the exact
excuse
phrasing.
me. I'm so wrong. I'm sorry,
I mean,
Lammy.
NASA, man. NASA has
Okay.
going to be so angry with you. So, Lammy.
So let's talk structure, which this book doesn't really have. What it is
Oh.
a bunch of like vignettes or short stories that bounce all over the place. We very occasionally get repeat characters, but except for one instance, we don't get any repeat viewpoints. And this isn't to say that this is a bad way to write a book. This is to say that this wasn't the way I wanted this book to be.
I see.
Yeah.
I wanted something more structured, more focused.
Mm.
I wanted this to be an Andy Weir book is what I really wanted.
Oh.
So basically what
interesting.
you're saying is that you're mad that he didn't write the book that you wanted.
Yes.
Okay.
This is entirely a me problem, for sure. Like, I understand this. Like,
I think that, Lammy, I think I'm a little bit more with you on this one, that while overall the short story kind of structure of every day afterwards kind of worked for me for the most part, but I didn't, can't say it worked for me the most part. Worked for me like slightly more often than it didn't. But a lot of them felt like the moon turning to cheese was kind of more just to the side of it. And that I wanted that to be more of the main focus of every chapter, right? Like,
Interesting.
this is how the moon turning to cheese affected this person directly. This is how it turned this person. There's a couple scenes that I really thought were hilarious and fun that we can talk about. But like, there's a couple where it's like, this is just your life. It just happened to be the moon also turned to cheese when we got to your viewpoint here. And like, so those ones didn't like ring with me.
there's one specifically that is like 7 or 8 pages of just going through this person's life up to this point, and then the moon turned to cheese, and here's another page or two of whatever.
Yeah.
I actually really like the structure because, first of all, I didn't really bother reading too much into what the synopsis was. And so for me, it was just, I don't know where he's going to go with this. And then once I figured out the structure of basically it's getting a more global view. Cesky, you had said that you wanted more of getting to see how specific people were really impacted
Mhm.
by the moon turning into cheese. I felt like I got that. There were definitely specific characters where you really saw how they were impacted. And it was at the end, I didn't know how he was going to resolve the moon turning into cheese. And it's like, is this just how it's going to be? Is this everything going to descend into chaos? And then how he ended it, I was like, okay, that was like a neat bow, logical, satisfying for me.
I don't know. I'm going to have to probably disagree a little bit here with Lammy. I don't want to talk too much about it before we get into the spoilers because it really needs that. But when I was going into the ending, I'm like, what's going to happen? What are they going to do? And then I was like, oh, that happened. Of course that happened. That was like, it's like that was the only thing I could think that would actually fix it, but it didn't feel as satisfying to me as something else, or as far as even just pulling the trigger and going through it the whole way, right? Because he's setting it up for one path, and then he kind of felt like he almost pulled back on it at the last second.
So can I give my feeling now?
No, sorry, Brad. We don't want to listen to your feelings about this book that you loved.
So the first thing I would say about the structure is that I love the vignettes. If you liked World War Z or Love Actually movie, that kind of structure, this will jive with you. There are overlaps. What I also liked is it introduced the whole idea of how social media affects how people think about things. So you have like things about Reddit and things about YouTube and things about political scams that they try to turn into media events and things like that. It felt very much like how our world kind of is post-COVID, where there's a lot of distrust of institutions and conspiracy theories and whatnot. And I really liked how it grabbed onto that. I don't know that it will date well. It's very much a book of the last couple of years. Does that make sense? And that concerns
Yeah,
me
I
about
hear
the
what
book.
you're saying. I think it can last, like, I think it can age well for the fact that you can replace the moon turning into cheese as an event with anything else, like any other like global kind of event. And it's more about the exploration of how, like World War Z, how people respond, how people choose to react.
And that's something that I really enjoyed about this because I felt like it treated all of its characters with a lot of grace, except for maybe like people from a bunch of different backgrounds have all these very different reactions,
Mhm.
but none of them are scorned for their reaction. Does that make sense? I feel like it was
Sure.
generous to its characters, and I really, really enjoyed that part of the book.
Mhm.
I am so glad that you guys have brought up World War Z, because that was motivated. Like, the structure for World War Z was motivated within the text to be like that. Those were accounts of what was happening collected afterward. This
Fair.
is not that. It
Yeah.
is fully unmotivated within the text. It's just a thing the way Scalzi felt like writing it. And it does not compare favorably to my mind, because I've read both, and World War Z was a masterpiece, and this was fun a lot of the time, but no.
What I really loved about it is how the moon turning to cheese was not the thing. It was the connections, how it, like I said, having an execution focuses the mind. And it was about the relationships with the different characters. Like, you have brothers who are having a feud, and they were.
I agree with what you're saying a little bit, but I think to its detriment, we're not spending enough time with the characters to get more satisfaction from those kind of relationships. Like, yeah, the Cheese Brothers story is one of my favorites, right? I like them both parts of it, but we get 2 chapters with them, and that's kind of like that's it with them. Versus most people, we get one section, one day in their life, and that's not enough for me to really feel 100% connected to them and like see their relationships. It didn't feel like it was connected enough to them. I wanted it to be more connected to the moon turning into cheese. Like the guy who has, this is a little spoiler, but one of the guys who's giving away his stuff to his ex-wife, I was like, this story has basically nothing to do with the cheese moon. Like, it's a nice story, but like I want more cheese moon. I want more astronauts figuring it out.
Yeah, I think part of it is just the expectations going in. And with me, because I had very little expectations going in, I was along for the ride. And I hear what you're saying, Lammy, about the comparison to World War Z and how this is a lesser version. But I think this version, because of the humor, because of how ridiculous, yes, zombies is ridiculous, but zombie is like in the horror realm. And it's just it by nature more serious. In this case, the moon turning into cheese is such a ridiculous premise. I think this was really a playground for Scalzi to experiment, to explore. Like, if I were this kind of character, if I were a university student, if I were an astronaut, if I were a billionaire tech CEO, right? Like,
If I were a Hollywood producer, if I were a
yeah,
pastor.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, how would these people, these characters react? Would they do anything different? Do they sink into despair? Do they are very curious and they want to find out more? Are they going to take advantage of the situation? How will they take advantage? And so to me, it was more of an exploration of humanity rather than a specific character.
And that's how I felt about it too. And what I will say is this is very different from anything I've read by him.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, that's true.
And I appreciate that as well, that he's going out on a limb. There's this very cynical part where there are bankers talking and they're like talking about like the phone tree.
Oh, that section was okay. So overall, I thought this book was very weak. Many of the individual like little vignettes were phenomenal. Like,
Yeah.
weirdly enough, one of the best ones was the like board of directors at a bank. Was
Yeah.
That one was so good.
And they're like, no, they don't hate it because it's AI. They hate it because they have to yell at it all the time to say, just, I want to talk to a real person.
Yeah. They hate it because it exists.
I do think it's very relatable. It's
Yes,
very
exactly.
realistic. Yeah.
And what I want
Yeah.
to say about the whole phone tree thing is my son got his credit card number stolen
Oh.
for the first time. And he comes down to me. And he's like, I've been on hold for like 45 minutes. And all I want to do is talk to a real person. I'm like, welcome to adulthood, dude.
Oh, did he yell representative in the phone?
Well, normally when I do it, I just say real life person.
Representative. Say that word.
Maybe that'll work faster. I don't know.
I would say one of the other things that I thought was a bit more of it worked in the story, but to me personally, it was more of a miss, was the, is it Jody? He's the billionaire who does stuff. He felt like a really big call out to a specific person until Jody referenced said person that I thought he was he was being represented.
He was 100%
as in story.
calling out. Yeah. 100%.
Well, he was, and then he calls him out literally in the text, and I was like, oh, I don't love it as much when Scalzi does really pop reference here, like culturally super relevant things like that.
Sure.
It just takes me out of the story a little bit more.
Do you think if you read it 5 years from now, you would feel different?
I don't know how I'd feel reading it 5 years from now. Like that's a tough question. Like, I'm not saying he did it poorly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it just
too real.
Yeah, too real. It pulls me out a little bit too much when it's so relevant.
This is one of the reasons why I'm concerned
Yeah.
about how it's going to age.
Yeah. Well, there are other things that could impact how it ages that we can't talk about. But anyway.
Yeah, what if the real moon turns to real cheese?
Exactly, guys.
That would make this book impossible to read. Just way too much trauma.
Yeah, we'd know exactly what's going to happen though in a year.
Mm-hmm.
What year does this take place in? I got confused.
I don't think it's ever specified, but I don't think it matters what
Modern
year it's
times.
in.
Yeah, just today plus or minus 5 years.
It would have to be plus because of COVID, because I do talk about COVID a little bit.
That's
okay,
true.
today plus or minus 4 years.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we ready to close out?
Sorry to all the lactose intolerant people.
I know, right? That is really sad. I feel bad for people who are lactose intolerant. In fact, I am a little bit. Not bad.
So am I.
And cheese is just amazing. It's so good. I love it. Lammy, do you have something you want to plug?
Sure. If you enjoyed hearing me trash this book and want to hear me trash other books, specifically a couple of them by Brandon Sanderson, I do a podcast called the Cosmere Deep Dive Podcast. And if you want specifically the ones that I'm trashing, you want to go to our latest releases, which is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and then go back a little bit to White Sand. Hated both of them.
Wow.
Lammy. We almost can't be friends anymore.
Well, give a listen to my podcast. You'll understand why.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, Craig, for loaning us a little portion of your media empire. And thank you, Horizon Wave, for starting all. For Cesky.
Hello.
Panda.
Hi. Bye.
And Lammy.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Little Red Buck. Good night.
Bye.
Bye. See you later.
Toodles.